I am super excited for this discussion today because we are going to be exploring how leading brands across food, sports, and entertainment are using digital innovation to engage audiences, measure success, and integrate AI in ways that elevate their business. So let's start with this for each of you. With what digital means to your brand and what are you prioritizing to craft that experience? And Scott, you were just on stage, so you're warmed up. So I'm going to give you that question first.
Everybody's tired of hearing from me. I mean, digital is obviously a huge part of our business today and moving forward. It's one of our key brand strategies is like we want to be a leader in digital. So I think we're really focused on building an absolutely great experience, both on the app, every part of the ordering channel, ordering flow and journey, including where you pick it up. Like, so making sure that it could be the best experience on the app, but when you get to the restaurant, it's like, I don't know where to go. What do I do? It's people, we're not going to build the stickiness there. Small plug, we just won an award through Ipsos and Nation's Restaurant News. We finished 5th overall in the QSR space, but #1 in order experience.
Congrats.
So we're really proud of that. But it's like we're not finished. We're going to keep building on it and make sure that we hit every part of that journey and that it's really tight.
Yeah. Meenakshi, same question.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Scott. In terms of digital, for us, we've got about 55% of our ordering penetrated through digital. So to us, it's first and foremost about how do we make it really easy for our guests to get Panera through the digital experience. But beyond that, where we are really focused on, I think a digital strategy is our brand strategy and vice versa. That is where we are connecting more deeper storytelling that we talk about Panera warmth in our cafes. That's what differentiates us. How do we bring that experience and that warmth into the digital and the omni-channel experience?
Gotcha.
That's what we're focused on. Yeah.
And Becky, same question, but with what you all are doing, how are you creating that sort of one-to-one experience with the fan base?
Yeah, for us, digital is so much about connecting with our fans. We think of fandom really as a formula. It's passion plus action. So in the digital space, we really stoke both of those things. We give people a place where they can go and express their passion for the team. And that really is one of the best attributes, of course, of working in sports, is that we have a brand that people are inherently passionate about. But then we also have to create places where they can take action on that passion. So it's about really making sure that we're feeding both sides of that equation and, making sure that we are connecting with consumers in a one-to-one fashion.
And Pat, you are managing multiple brands, right? So how are you, same question, but how are you sort of building trust with your customers across the portfolio?
Yeah, we're in our infancy. So how many people here have any idea what Unleashed Brands is? 2? Love it.
I was on the prep call with you. So.
You're on the prep.
Yeah,
we got
all
3
of us on stage.
So we're in our infancy, right? And prior to this, I was the CMO of Burger King. We celebrated our 75th anniversary. Everybody knew it. High awareness. I was with Pepsi for years before that. Unleashed, you probably heard of some of our brands, right? So we have Urban Air through Sylvan Learning Center, but we're all around about families and bringing family into our digital ecosystem. So we're in the building phase right now. So Urban Air, very small percentage of our transactions come through digital. We don't have an app launched yet. We're working on that. So loyalty and digital is going to be a massive part of how do we bring value to families from when you have your child and you enroll them in Little Gym all the way through when they're ready to go to college and they use Sylvan in Class 101. So we're really excited to take some of the learnings that some of us, you guys are doing, some of that have done in the past, and really bring it forward to families. So right now it's how do we move them through the brands and add value every day. So as we're building it out, that's going to be our big focus.
Gotcha. Thanks for that. So partnerships and creative campaigns is obviously super important to all of you. Scott, can you speak a little bit about the collaboration with Lainey Wilson?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Lainey Wilson partnership was great. We really wanted it to focus in the work you'll see coming out, like focus on, we're open 24 hours. We're that beacon of hope for you in the night when there's nothing open. And we're there. And we're like trusted friend, always by your side. You can always count on us. The other partnership I'd love to talk about is with Becky and the Spurs.
Yes, that was going to be my next question.
One of our great collabs was the Spurs merchandise line. I was going to wear that today, but then I saw that it was going to be 82 degrees and thought better of it.
I'm just wondering why all of us didn't get one.
Sorry.
So, this is great stuff. I wore one to one of the Spurs games in Austin and got asked like 3 times, where do I get that and can I have yours? So, how do we use the power of these 2 great brands and take it to merchandise, which is different, not crazy out there, but unique and something you're not going to find anywhere else. And it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think this has been extraordinarily well received. Oftentimes, and Scott, you spoke about this in your last panel. Also, high five for doing back-to-backs. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we do collaborations, it's to reach an audience that we may not be reaching, right? I mean, there's no better way to authentically get in front of an audience that you're not currently talking to. That's not what this was. This was about 2 brands that are iconic in the city of San Antonio coming together, and really the state of Texas, I think, coming together and celebrating those roots. And this was sort of right down the middle of the fairway for another sports pun. And I think the reception of this collection has really shown that people were hungry for it.
Yeah.
I hit sports and food puns in that answer.
All right, I'm going to apologize now, but we can't have this conversation without talking about AI.
Yeah.
So, Pat, I'm going to start with you in terms of how are you thinking about AI and as it relates to your business and what you're trying to accomplish, not only this year, but in the future?
Yeah, look, AI is a game changer on so many fronts. And, I've been on panels like this before, and people were asking me about Web3 and NFTs and things like that really never caught it and had the traction that AI has. Obviously, it's going to change our lives in every way. And we look at it from a business standpoint. At Unleashed, we're really looking at it now for how do we take all the data and insights that we have around families. We have 20 million families that come visit one of our brands every year. And how do we sort through that effectively and actually go start building those one-to-one relationships and personalizing for a family? So if you have 3 daughters, ages 12, 15, and 17, you're going to act a lot different than someone who has a son and a daughter ages 2 to 4. And so how do we make sure that we're driving our messaging for families really resonating? So a lot of ours is back end. And, throughout my career, we've done some consumer facing things with AI, and it's fun and it's differentiated. But for me, the real power is going to be what do you do in the back end and behind the scenes? And then really with your advertising and media, right? So getting to that coveted holy grail of the one-to-one relationship, AI really enables that. So that's where we're leaning in is those 2 areas. And as it evolves and as it becomes a bigger part of everything we do, we're excited to see what the future holds.
Awesome. Meenakshi, same question.
Yeah. I think AI, you can't be in any panel today.
Right.
If you have digital, you can't not talk about AI, right? But to me, I think AI is, there are several parts of it, right? Like you have data and we had machine learning, and now it's getting into AI, it's getting into agentic AI. There are these different terms. But ultimately, I do agree. I think AI is speeding up innovation in ways that we couldn't have imagined before. I think of it primarily as it's a co-pilot that makes a lot of tasks that you want to do faster. So how we are using it at Panera is really, we've thought about, we have 20 million guests. We want to send them different messages. We have such a breadth of menu. And how do we kind of bring up the right food at the right time, at the right message? And I feel like AI has enabled that. It's gone through the messy data at the back end and being able to generate that in a much faster and effective way. So the consumer-facing part of it just becomes that much easier and more impactful using AI. Yeah.
I would just build on that and say it's all of that and processing all that data faster. It's not taking someone's job. It's freeing that person up to do something else. There's no shortage of things to do. And if they're not having to work in pivot tables all day, that's great.
Yep.
And I'm going to just pivot and ask a question that is not on the discussion topic. How are you all managing that with your teams, right? Do your teams understand that message about, AI will help them be more effective, get them out of this sort of, day-to-day, task, if you will, because I hear different things from different people. Some folks are afraid of it, thinks they're going to take their job. Others are like, no, it's going to help me grow in my career. Like, what's been the sort of sentiment across your teams, if you will, and how do you have those discussions internally?
I can start. I think the way we think about it is, it's really how we all use it today, right? Like, you do a trip planning, it's just so much easier now. You'd go to ChatGPT or OpenAI. It's not that you take away and you let someone else do it. So it's the same thing, and really focusing on AI and utilizing that technology to do what you can do much faster and better. It's not about analytics, it's about insights. Let LLM find and mine the data, and you put your creativity and understanding to really get more out of it. So, yeah.
And if you're hitting the tab button in Outlook to finish the sentence, you're using AI. It makes your life easier.
I think it's also about modeling responsible and robust use as a leader in the organization. And it's about trying to get people excited about something that can actually be an incredibly helpful tool for them. We use Conversica as a sales tool in our organization, and being very clear, I don't think that AI will ever, or should it ever, take the job of a human being. But I think exactly what everyone has said, it can make humans a lot more effective. Mm-hmm. So through Conversica, we have a sales bot. Her name is Ashley Rodriguez. If you've ever gotten an email from Ashley Rodriguez at the Spurs, it's actually a Conversica sales bot. But what she's done is help make us more effective in our conversion rate. And she's actually helped sort all of our leads in a way that our reps know exactly what products they should be pitching to different clients. So in no way is it replacing people, but it is driving up the amount of sales that they're able to close.
Gosh.
Yeah, I think there's that element of supercharging your work. And where I've seen a lot of people who have some fear is with our agency partners. And then also my team manages the call center, right? And we look at AI tools for the call center. And I think getting their head wrapped around of like, this is gonna take you to the next level and take your productivity to the next level, take our insights to the next level. So I've seen kind of that fear start to wear off. And I spent the last week down with our agency Zimmerman in Miami, and it was really about, hey, how do we take these tools and get things done faster? How do we do more? So I see it as people starting to lean into it more as a tool versus an agent of, oh no, it's coming for my job.
I would just add, I have the call center too, and we ran a test. We do OSAT after every encounter, and the follow-up emails that were written by AI got a higher score than the follow-up emails written by humans.
Wow. And they say AI right now is it's only going to get better, right? I've got a ton more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience right now, see if anyone has any questions they want to ask. This question in the back. Anyone is there an extra mic or?
When it comes to conquesting against your competitors, when they, have opened the door or, given you an opportunity, how do you guys go against, say a McDonald's or another, let's say Subway? And Becky, I'm really curious if you guys are thinking about targeting us in Dallas who have given up on the Mavs. So curious what y'all's thoughts are.
First of all, the Spurs bandwagon is large and open, and we love all fans. I think that every team goes through cycles. Sports is a cyclical business. Sometimes teams are on the rise. Sometimes teams are in the struggles. But competition in the sports landscape is really attention. Like, that's the thing that we have to think the most about, is that we're essentially a luxury product. We are the thing that people do when they have free time, which the amount of free time in people's lives is continuing to shrink. So we're out there competing with all of the other fun things that people can do. And you look, especially in a market like Austin, we play 2 home games here at the Moody Center every year, and this is the 3rd year that we've done it. And we're finally starting to figure out this market and figure out the things that we're competing with here are very different than the things that we're competing with in San Antonio. So I think it's just competition for us is not, there's the obvious competition on the court. But from the branding standpoint, it's about capturing people's attention.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, and I'll just take one of our brands, our biggest brand, Urban Air. All of these guys are our competitors, right? So Urban Air, anything you and your family can do on a Saturday, whether it's a Spurs game or a lunch out, is competition to us. I was actually just talking to one of our franchisees about our cafe, and I'm a food and beverage guy. It was a BK, Pepsi. I look at our cafe and my mouth waters of like, we can get so much more out of this cafe. But our franchisees want to price like we're captive, like we're Disney. And I said, you can't do that. Because, and I actually used Panera. I said, there's a Panera at 200 feet from your location. And we can't count on them being there for buying our food because Panera's got an amazing offer. So we have to have compelling items. We have to have a fair price, and we have to beat them every day. So I would love to show a Spurs game at inside of an Urban Air, so you can kill two birds with one stone. We do sell burgers. They're not as good as yours, but we got to make them as good. So it's really interesting. You look at competition, especially in our business. We kind of compete with every meal you can eat on a Saturday and every activity you can do. So it's really fun as we look at it.
Yeah, I would echo that and say, there's the marketing conquest, and then there's the, okay, I gave you a shot. How was it? Was it good, or was it just kind of like, it was okay. I'll go somewhere else next time. I'll go to Panera, or I'll just have that burger at Urban Air. It's not worth taking that extra trip. So we've got to just make sure we win them every time they come. That's, if we can bring them in, we got to, to use a Texas phrase, lasso them up and keep them there.
I love that. I think just in addition to all of that, I would say how we think about competition is also helping us and reminding us to sharpen our point of view in terms of why we exist. Because to your point, McDonald's is as much of a competition to Panera as a Subway, as a Whataburger. So really remembering why someone chooses Panera, which is about the food and great worth it value. We need to make sure that we keep that sharp outside of just making sure once they come in, the payoff is good, right? So that's how we think of competition as well. Yeah.
Great question. Other questions?
Becky, you mentioned, obviously the last few years, branched out, a few games here in Austin. I'd love if you could actually elaborate a little bit on what you found and the differences of marketing here and finding fans in Austin versus maybe in San Antonio. What exactly those factors are? It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think some of it has to do with coming in as a relative. This is a new market for us. I mean, certainly our brand has been around for 53 years, and we've always played in a market that's 70 miles to the south of here. But in some ways, this was about reintroducing ourselves to this market. And the things that we find that are a little different, sports is not as big of a focus in this market as it is in San Antonio. Certainly UT has this market captive, and when UT is doing well, that's all people are really, focused on and talking about. I think Austin FC has done a great job coming in and launching their brand, launching a very, very specific brand. And they have a really strong point of view on who their team is. And they've done a beautiful job creating supporters groups, which according to our research is the best way really to build fandom. Is through other super fans. So it was really about trying to figure out where the attention was already focused in this market, and then trying to find a way to naturally fit into that conversation.
And Becky, I'll stay with you on the next question. This one has to do with measurement, right? And so when you think about your digital strategy, what are sort of the, key indicators you're looking at to measure success?
Yeah, I mean, much like everybody else, we're looking at a lot of the engagement metrics, conversion metrics, the stuff that we're all looking at, but we're also layering on a few additional things on top of that. Every night that we have a game, we're talking to fans in real time. We actually have a panel that we're tapping from a research perspective, and we're asking them primarily about our broadcast, because the reality of our business is that arena attendance is capped at a little over 18,000. So we really see digital and our broadcast as the best ways to engage fans who can't be one of those 18,000 people in the building every night. So every night we are pinging people and trying to find out in real time their reaction to either a promotion that we're doing or something that we've launched, or even our play-by-play announcers on our broadcast. And we found that to be a very, very helpful tool. It is hard in our business to sort of tease out the emotion of fans. So if we're, getting our butts handed to us in the third quarter, fan sentiment is usually not all that positive. Shocking to everyone here, I'm sure. So sometimes it can be hard to tease that out and try to figure out exactly what fans think of something that we're doing, independent of their reaction to what's going on the court.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, because I always think of that around sort of like contextual alignment in terms of the mood of your consumer at that point in time, right? The mood's going to be very different if, the Spurs are getting blown out versus if they're up by 20 in the third quarter, right? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is it true that the Whataburger fry toss absolutely spikes fan engagement during the game?
No, 1,000,000% it is. We actually have an AI tool in our arena called Crowd IQ, and we were the first team in the NBA to do this, but it actually measures sentiment in the arena during everything that happens, and attention. So one of the best things that fans love at our games is the flying fries, where for those of you who haven't been, let's give it up for I think spicy ketchup is the if you look at the win-loss record between fancy and spicy, spicy's winning in our arena. But
he's an athlete. He's got skills. He's got game.
Really good.
Scott, how do you think about measuring success?
I mean, at the macro, it's like, are we driving same-store sales and traffic? That's like the biggest one. We obviously look at all of our marketing channels and think about that and make sure that we're constantly doing kind of a manage, balance, adjust. Like, this is working, let's adjust it. Maybe we dial it up. This isn't working, let's dial it back or retool it. But it all ladders up to, are we driving same-store sales and traffic, and are we seeing our digital channels grow?
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, I mean, I would say all of that. Plus, is our digital channel growing the right way? Meaning, are we driving stickiness with our guests, right? At the end of the day, we believe app is our best gateway to a great Panera experience. It's easy to order. It knows you. It helps you. It's customized for you, but we know that real estate of an app on your phone is tough. So how do you earn that? So stickiness of guests and their value is another metric that we really watch. Yeah.
Pat, you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, it's we look at it a few different ways, and across our brands we have high frequency brands. So like a Sylvan Learning Center, you're coming in 2-3 times a week. And then an urban area coming in 2-3 times a year, maybe. And so we look at metrics like traffic. We also we use Net Promoter Score. It works really well for the type of business that we're in, and we're tracking Net Promoter Score and incentivizing our franchisee base on it. So very important from consumer and guest metrics, and then media metrics. We sometimes get a little bit too in the weeds, and sometimes we don't see the forest through the trees, right? So we'll look at our media metrics and be like, man, they're off the charts. But then you look at your traffic and you're down like 4%. And so it's really starting to reconcile of what is driving your business, what's driving consumers in, what's making them choose your brand. And so we're doing a little bit of a metric overhaul on the media side on really understanding what are the drivers and what are we getting for our investment. And so it's MMM modeling on top of what we're doing with our traditional metrics that we look after.
And how often are you doing Net Promoter Score?
We see Net Promoter Score on a weekly basis. Oh, wow. And so I said we have 20 million families coming through. And so we're constantly looking at it for all of our brands. And some of them are off the charts. Like Little Jim is in the high 80s. So we've got really, really strong brand there. And then you've got Urban Air, which is in the 20s, which for some of this isn't a bad score. But as we're trying to move families between our brands, and you have one at an 80 and one at a 20, the proposition for your consumer is starting to erode a bit as they move between your brands. And so it's how do we bring that up and how do we make that a focus? So no matter which unleashed brand that your family's in at that time, we know that it reflects on all of our brands. And so we look at it consistently. It's a big metric for us and a big incentive structure for our franchisees.
We talked about digital transformation. We talked about measurement. We talked about AI and campaign creatives. Looking ahead, what's one trend or shift in digital engagement that you think brands need to prioritize in 25?
is it a cop out to just say AI?
No, but give me a little more than elaborate on that a little bit.
I think, I don't want to speak for my other restaurant panel here, but we're probably later to that party. We're not, a Google or Apple or Amazon or anything. So we're not bleeding edge. We want to get to like leading edge. Yep. And I think, how do we accelerate that and move maybe a little faster than we're accustomed to? Because to what I said earlier, I think it's just absolutely game changing. We're 10 years ago, this group was probably, like you said, talking about SimCity and NFTs and all this stuff, and it just doesn't matter. But AI is going to be an absolute changer of our industry, and I think most industries.
I think, technology, AI, just innovation is moving so fast that I think that it is level, it's making it's all becoming such a level playing field in terms of any new restaurant that comes into the market now can have an app, which is great. So the winners are going to it's about how you use that technology and for what, right? I think if it was at one point upsell and sell and cross-sell, I think the winners are going to be about those who are able to help the guest the most, which will then make it more tangible, right? Like, it's not just about, I'm not giving you data just so you can sell back to me. I'm giving you data because you know me. There's a shared value that you're able to show to me. And that's where that guest stickiness is going to come. So to me, the differentiators are how you're going to use the technology, which is going to be available for everyone. So branding and using that for guests is what the unlock is going to be, I think.
Gotcha.
I agree wholeheartedly with both of those things. And I'm actually going to take it in a little bit of a Luddite direction. I think the trend that marketers need to be focused on in 2025 is getting back to doing really, really, really solid creative. We're all using
1,000%. Yeah.
We're all using all this great technology. That's table stakes now. Innovating is table stakes for brands, but really focusing on what makes your brand unique, and then planning the thoughtful, creative resources around whatever it is that you're putting into the market, I think is critical. I mean, if we're all chasing trends, then nobody is creating them. And I think that's one thing for me that I think about a lot. In the sea of 30 NBA brands, we're the coolest league on the planet. And, I'm a little biased when I say that, but I think about, how do the Spurs stand out among 29 other teams in this league, and what makes us unique? And that, to me, I think is the trend that people need to continue to have in mind.
Yeah, I love that. All brilliant answers. And I think from my perspective, it's something I learned back in the day, and I see my fellow Doritos alum, Curtis, back there. This will resonate with him. But we always looked at things at PepsiCo through a 70-20-10 lens as we looked at kind of new things as they were emerging. And we put NFTs and Web3 and all that through it, but it's really around 70% of what we did was around tried and true methods that we knew worked. And then you had 20%, which we called validated new. So it was things that were, they were emerging a couple of years ago, but now you can really validate and put measurement against them. And then the 10% is where you go experiment. And right now for us, that's AI. In our business. And then it unleashed, like, influencers still kind of fall in that 10%. Like, how do we measure it? How do we see it? And that's an important part of our business. But I think having that structure versus jumping in, and there's a tendency for brands to want to be first, and then you take so much organizational focus and you're saying, we're going to go all in on the metaverse, right? And if you did that, it probably didn't pay out and it distracted you. So I think keeping a discipline too, when you look at the new things, is so important. And I think, as we said, I think AI is one that we're starting to see it move from that 10 to that 20, and we'll soon be in the 70. But I think as long as you approach things like that, you can stay on top of trends, but also not do a student body left that might hurt you in the long term.
Gotcha. All right, last chance for any questions.
It would be really awesome to hear you give some examples of those meaningful connections in the digital experience. Like, I loved the experience one, like, it's the flying fries. Like, what are some of the meaningful examples of things you all have done in your digital channels that have created that real connection with your consumers?
I can take one. So during the pandemic, obviously, real bad for live events. We were forced to think very differently about our business. And in some ways, that was a good thing for our industry because it did accelerate a lot of our growth from a digital perspective. We created what we call our digital arena in our app. So again, we have a bit of an inventory problem, if you will, in that only 18,000 people can be in our building. So we figured out a way to get people organically in our app and chatting about the game. So we have a Spurs moderator that sits in the digital arena, and we do prizing and gaming similar to what happens on the court. So we've got ways that people can engage during timeout breaks with games within the app. And the stickiness inside of that experience has been unbelievable. That is by far the most engaged audience that we have. And it really has, I mean, they can chat directly with the moderator who's a member of our team, and they can chat directly with each other. So really watching some of that fandom blossom and bloom within that experience has been very cool.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'll briefly talk about one that was digital, but in the real world. So we're, especially this year, but every year, we're all about giving love back to the fans. The LTOs we've been bringing back this year are some of the fan favorites that we hear about. So we ran something through our digital channels, and it was, tell us why you should get married at Whataburger. And so we, got a lot of selection, a lot of submissions, and picked a couple who used to work here in Austin. They worked at a different restaurant, but after work late at night, we were the only ones open. They would go to Whataburger, and that's how they started dating. He's a huge Whataburger fan. So on Valentine's Day, last month, we married them at the Whataburger in Las Vegas. But we took all the content. It was almost like real time. Like, here she is getting ready for the wedding, and 30 minutes later, it was on Instagram, and kind of throughout the night just kept bringing that. So it was great for that, but it brought our fans along with them on the journey about they have this love for Whataburger, and really wrapping everyone, whether you were in Las Vegas or following online, into the love for the brand that they have and that we have for our fans.
Great example. Yeah, that's awesome. I can share one for what we've done with Panera. So when we think about Panera, I think it's our warm hospitality that really makes us stand out in the QSR and the fast casual space. So if you think about the amount of orders now that is off-prem, what we learned was it's missing that last touch connection of when something goes wrong. At the end of the day, it's about food, it's humans, mistakes happen. So what we did bring up in our app now is how to make it right very, very easy. So at the end of it, it's a simple, your order is out, get help. Just it goes through very, very seamlessly. It's a simple feature. It's more about the thought of how you can connect, and you can very easily say, well, you missed this, or something was off, and you refund that, and and it's about the copy, it's about the connection, how you word it, and you give them a reward to come right back. And we've seen that has changed the OSAT scores. So when something goes wrong on digital, you're almost making it easy to connect back to the guest in a very seamless way. So, yeah.
And I'm gonna cop out a little bit here. So I've been with Unleashed for just over 2 weeks, and so we have not been able to launch anything just yet, but right around the corner. And I also promised Scott that the only burgers we're going to talk about here are Whataburgers. They're amazing. So I'm going to jump even further back. But something that we did I still think is relevant today is when I was looking after Cheetos, we did a program called Cheetos Museum. And it was around UGC, right? And what makes Cheetos different and distinct, right, is their shape, it's the mess. And we pulled ourselves, all that's on purpose. And I tell people this and they gasp, especially moms. So Frito-Lay had the ability for the last 20 years to make the cheese not come off on your fingers. You can put a coating on it, it's not that expensive. Very deliberate, in what makes this product beautiful and differentiated is that it's messy and the shapes are random. And so Cheetos Museum was around, we focused on families, and it was, what do you see in your Cheeto? Like a cloud, right? And we were seeing it on the internet. People were selling, I think one went for $80,000 2 days ago on eBay. Like, it's still happening, but that trend's been going on for 20 years. And we took that and we harnessed it. and we took what was special about the brand and gave it to our consumers. And that's something Frito has done through Do Us a Flavor on Lay's and Crash the Super Bowl on Doritos. But those articulations were true to the brand. So it's how do you get your consumers involved in a way with your brand that no other brand can do authentically. And so as we look at Unleashed, we're gonna steal and borrow some of those ideas and those thoughts around what makes your brand special and how do you have consumers participate with you in the journey. And I think it was relevant 20 years ago and it's still relevant now.
What I'm hearing from all of you is, consumer experience is always going to be memorable. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be a super positive one or a very negative one, right? Right, cool. Any other questions from the group? No? Okay. Well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time today.